Okay, before we continue, I do want to stop right here um, to address all users, right? Maya, Mudbox, and 3D Max for something very important that we need to consider as we work with our texture. Okay, you did notice how the specular and bump attributes took the values on this texture that you created, right? And whatever was lighter will kind of come out of the surface, kind of raised up, and whatever was darker will be dented in. That's the default for bump, and for specular will be the same, but will be shiny. White will be more shiny, or black will be more matte. Um, so here's a catch. When you create your bump and specular maps, okay, you can apply the same texture, but if since you had last week you painted some tonal variations on the skin, you might notice that some of the areas where the skin is that you created those darker or lighter tones start also denting or bumping on the surface, and you do not want that. So for your bump and specular, what I would suggest is to make an additional texture, and this time just leave as your on your specular and your bump map, on the areas where the skin is painted, just color that as a maybe neutral gray, maybe somewhere here halfway, and say okay, and fill that area up with gray. The idea is that gray will be neutral, so we'll not do much bump on the surface or specular that you will notice. Okay, and then you will need to remove all the markings that you did, all the painting that you did the tonal variations that you did last week. You need to remove all that, because otherwise it will look like the character has some kind of scars on it. Okay, so on the areas where you painted from last week, for the specular and the bump, remove all the skin part, and on the color you can and you should leave the color that you did last week, we know, with the tonal variations. Okay, I hope that makes sense. The thing is that if you do apply that texture, the same color map, you will notice, and I hope you get a chance of seeing how it works. You notice that those tonal values that you created last week are going to start creating dents and bumps on the skin, and you don't want that. So that's an easy way to fix that. Okay, so now last but not least, I wanted to go to Mudbox and address how to do the diffuse and bump and specular. In this case, you might have had from last week already a painted character with your skin, tonal values exercise that we did. So if you did, you're one step ahead. If you don't, and you're starting from scratch and you want to do this different this week, notice how the default material that comes on the, with the default character has the diffuse, has the specular, and has the bump, but it doesn't allow you to map anything on it. So that's where we're gonna go paint layer. So go on the layers menu, go paint, and right click, new layer. Okay, and I'm going to create a diffuse channel. Say okay. I'm gonna create another one, right click, and this time I'm going to create a specular channel, and see how it's already giving us that thing to map any files on it. And then right click layer, and here we're gonna do bump map. Okay, and then say okay, and now we have our 3 nodes to map our file. Okay, so I'm going to go to the diffuse, and I'm going to find that one texture that we created on my nicely organized desktop, and there it is. There's as you bring it in, because the UVs were so nicely laid out, right, and we were so very careful to do that, is already very much in place. So if you start noticing a little bit of offsetting, it might have been that the UVs were moved when you were in Photoshop, so you might want to go back and maybe probably restart with importing the UVs. Specular, remember what I just mentioned? Let's do the same. Leather cloth, character texture. But remember on the specular, to remove the information, right, for the arms and face, because then you will start seeing variations on specular color based on the tonal changes that you created last week. And for bump, I'm gonna let you do that too, but it's pretty much, you know, the same process. Just apply the same texture, open, and there is the bump. Okay, so I would suggest, you know, from here, you know, maybe taking a few screenshots, you know, closer and further out, so that we can see that. You can always, you know, edit the attributes here for value, you know, 50%, or you know, or whatever you would like to change. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You in this series, you pretty much saw how to get your UVs, how to paint your color and bit diffuse maps with Photoshop, and how to apply them to Mudbox and to Maya and 3D Max. Okay, so have fun, and I look forward to seeing your creations.